Yep, that's me. I'm very tech savvy. Pull the plug and then plug it back in.
Hey, it worked. I will tell you that because of COVID, when I got a phone call, we're 6 months into this now. I got a phone call this week and helped somebody find what they wanted on the website, which was the worship service. And then she got it and we hung up, and then she called me back and she said, I can see you and your mouth is moving, but there's no sound. What do I do? And without even like blinking an eye, no rolling my eyes, no, oh, come on. I said, okay, I want you to look at your phone. On the side, there's 2 buttons. One is a plus and one is a minus. Try turning the volume up on the side of your phone. And it worked.
Oh.
But I have learned that's the first thing.
Right up there with, have you tried turning it off and on again?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I use that a lot too. Cool, well, it's 2 o'clock and I don't know how many people to expect, but I'm gonna say we have a very scheduled agenda, and since we said we'd start at 2, let's do that. And so Heidi, that's all you.
Okay, happy to be here. You'll notice if you looked at the orientation agenda that there are time designations by each thing, and we're going to try to stick to that. That's just how we're going to roll. So let us pray. Holy God, we gather this day with gratitude for the time together, and we pray that you would help us to use it wisely, to center our hearts and minds and intentions on you and the realm in which your will is done. By your Spirit, may we surround one another with love and celebrate the gifts that each of us brings for creative ministry. May all our connections be meaningful, and may this time be fruitful. May it move us ever more toward being inclusive and flexible in the exercise of our leadership. And these and the prayers that we bring to this moment that reside in our hearts, we lift up to you, leaning on the grace of Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So I'd like to just go around the Hollywood squares and have everybody just say who you are and what commission or committee you serve on or you represent in the presbytery. And then if you would just offer something from your life or from your ministry that you are able to celebrate today. And there are several of us, so this is not a dissertation. This is just I can go ahead and start, and then I'm gonna call on somebody, and whomever I call on, if you'd call on the next person, that'd be great. I'm Heidi Peterson. I'm the pastor at Central Presbyterian in Kansas City, and serve on this visioning team. And something I'm celebrating today is the tonnage of fresh produce that our church garden is producing for our pantry patrons. Okay, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Danner. I'm the pastor at First Pres Atchison. I am on council, on the personnel committee. I'm on the vision task force, and a variety of other hats. Something that I'm celebrating today, without going into much detail, is I made an important connection that I've been trying to find in order to help 2 little girls in a really bad situation. So I'm moving forward in a positive way there. So I'm going to call on Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Metter. I am the pastor at Blue Ridge Presbyterian Church in Raytown, and I also serve on the Vision Committee. And my thing I'm celebrating today is that I have a brand new niece, and she looks like that. Isn't she cute? Everybody, aw, the baby. So that's my celebration today. And I'm calling on Walt.
Oh, Walt, you're muted.
Well, there we go.
It's very unusual for me not to be heard. Sorry. But I'm a member of Village, and I'm involved with Heartland Center on their board, moderator of Committee on Representation, and on the Mission and Social Justice Committee. And the exciting thing I think that I'm involved in right now is tallying up the 15 different items that the Mission and Social Justice Committee would like to tackle, which is way more than we can handle. So we're making a survey to see what kind of things will pop up and surface to the top. Let me talk to see what Brian's up to. Is he there or did he disappear?
I am here. Thank you, Walt. My name is Brian Ellison. I am currently stated clerk of the Presbytery. I am celebrating that this week on 2 different occasions was able to have fresh caprese salad made with tomatoes from our garden, basil from our garden, pesto, which is not normally an ingredient in caprese salad, but added in from a neighbor's freshly made pesto supply. And all I had to buy was the fresh mozzarella. So it was a delight. Let's see. How about Sarah?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sarah Dunn Pickrell. I'm the director of new worshiping communities within Heartland Presbytery. So get to hang out with the commission quite a bit and our amazing new worshiping community leaders. Let's see, celebrating. I'm about to submit, if someone else, hint on this call, Paul Rock would sign our seed grant proposal. I'm about to submit a funding proposal for a brand new worshiping community today. And I submitted 2 brand new proposals last week. So if all those work out, that means 3 new worshiping communities within a couple weeks, which is amazing. So big celebration, also enjoying the rain today. And I will pass it off to Kimby. Good to see you, Kimby.
Good to be seen, and congratulations. Good news there. Yay. I am pastor at First Pres in Gardner and currently moderator of the nominating committee, which is meeting with representation, and celebrating. I think today I'm celebrating wonderful, caring volunteers who jump in and do stuff and take care of people who are in trouble and things like that. So it's a good thing. I will pass on who is not. Dee.
I'm Dee Cooper. I'm the interim executive presbyter here in Heartland. And I'm celebrating today this Vision Task Force. They have done amazing work. And so I found myself actually eager to get on this call because I feel like y'all are going to have your socks blown off. They have really done exceptional work. And so I'm really excited to see kind of the unveiling of all of this. And I'm going to call on Lonnie.
Yes, good to be with you, and I apologize for being slow getting on. My computer charger wasn't working today, and I had to figure out how to do this on my iPad, and I had some issues getting that done. So I have to say that I'm celebrating the fact that I have my first published book is out. It came out 2 months ago, and you probably noticed the talking heads on all of these news shows always have their book set up behind them someplace so somebody can see that they published a book and what the title is. So here it is, A Brief History of Belle Isle Plantation, Lancaster, Virginia. That's what I'm celebrating. Heritage Press, you can get it on Amazon.
You want to call on somebody, Lonnie?
I don't really know who to call on. I guess
Okay.
I'm not really seeing all the faces on my
Okay, how
screen.
about Cynthia?
Hello, I am the moderator of the Safe Boundaries Response Panel. newly appointed, but I also chaired the same, an earlier version of this some years ago. And I am celebrating today that we have our 5th grandchild coming in the next 10 days. And we know it's a boy, so, and also the fact that his mother works retail and so far has not come down with COVID, thank heavens. And I will call on Nikki.
Hi, everybody. I am Nikki Cooley. I am on the Vision Task Force as well, and I am the moderator of the Commission on Preparation for Ministry. And I am celebrating that we are having this meeting today because I am really excited about the work we've done, and to get to share it and share that energy and excitement is really exciting for me. And I will invite, I don't think we've heard from Alex.
Alex Wales, HR, head of stewardship at this point. Celebrating our next door neighbor's return from the hospital. Looked like she had COVID, but they did all kind of tests. And I think she's just suffering from exhaustion. Her mother died about 3 weeks ago. And she went up there, and we were very afraid she might have contacted somebody, but they couldn't get a positive test, so she's back home, and that's good news. Let's see. Paul?
Hi, Paul Rock at Second Presbyterian Church, and chair of the New Worshiping Communities Commission. I am also excited to hear your guys' report, and glad I'm actually wearing socks today so that I can have them blown off, because that's not always the case. And I have pants on. I am celebrating today that we had, it's kind of bittersweet. I just dropped off our daughter at the airport. We had our 2 oldest kids, who we don't typically see that often, home for 5 months. So I'm celebrating 5 months, a golden lining in this pandemic, that we got to have those 2 home. And I will choose Karen. Have you gone? Okay, Karen.
I can hear you.
So we're not hearing you, Karen.
I have a new laptop. Can you hear me now? I have a new church laptop. That's one of the things I'm celebrating, is I use some professional expense money to buy it because I haven't gone anywhere. So I'm still figuring out all the audio things. I'm at Southminster Presbyterian, the associate pastor, a part of the visioning task force. Currently serving on council now as well. Was on this original grouping as CMD. And I want to celebrate, well, first I got a new laptop, but second, this weekend at Southminster, Saturday, we had about 35 people, and we packed 360 lunches for harvesters. And it was all socially distanced, even in the rain, in Fellowship Hall, and it was just nice to see people. And Sunday evening, I did my youth group kickoff. With 9 youth, we gathered outside, everybody bring a lawn chair and a drink. We played a game with imaginary balls, so you didn't have any high-touch objects. And it was just nice to get to see them, and it felt very grounding and very normal and familiar. And so it was nice to kind of be located within the year after feeling kind of adrift for the last 5.5 months. James, I don't think you've gone, have you?
I haven't, and hang on. There we go. I'm Jim Scott, and today I'm representing GLAMP, and we're really actually happy. We just got a second COVID relief grant, and we've been giving away computers and food for the last 3 months, working through the agencies there at LAMP, and we're going to do another 3 months of fresh produce and computer giving. We actually provide food to the other tenants on the campus there at LAMP, and they distribute it to their constituents. And so we just got funding on Monday, yesterday, for another 3 months of that through the end of the year. And that's about 8,000 meals. It's about 600 families a week, I think 600 people a week. And I will choose Greg Take if he hasn't already said something.
Hi, everyone. Greg Take with Grandview Park, moderator of the Urban Network. I am celebrating construction. Grandview Park tore out its kitchen a couple of weeks ago, and we're deeply in the process of building it back, or at least planning the process of building it back. And also just got a green light to rehab a house with another local nonprofit here in KCK for families. The first step of creating an affordable housing program here in KCK with them.
Thank you. I think that's everybody. Is anyone outstanding? I mean, we're all outstanding, but okay. Thank you so much for sharing that and for doing so succinctly. I'm going to pass this off to Nikki.
I'm going to make it so I can see more of you. I want to start by reading the vision statement, something that we're going to invite you to do with all of your committees and commissions every time you gather moving forward. So centered on God and surrounding one another in love, the vision of Heartland Presbytery is to celebrate creative ministry, meaningful connections, intentional inclusivity, and adaptive leadership. And it took us a long time to get here. So I get the piece to kind of just fill in the background of how did we get here and how did we end up with this statement. Before Dee came, I don't remember if this was when Charlie was still here or not, but Jason, Carl, Elaine, Logie, and some other people that I'm not going to name everybody because I'll leave someone out, but we began a Presbytery-wide conversation about our identity and who are we. And if you remember at Presbytery meetings, there was time for small group discussions, and you were an animal, or we were divided into groups in different places. And part of what came out of that was that we don't really know, or we didn't really know who we were. We were this group of churches all coming together because we were the Presbytery, but nobody knew what that meant or what that was about. So then Dee arrived, and one thing she did last December was get all of the council and moderators of committees and commissions together to do a training with Sarah White-Carr. And it was a visioning process, just kind of lots of ideas thrown out. And we ended up with maybe, I want to say 8 pages of notes or something crazy from that meeting. From that meeting, the visioning task force was formed. Council said, we need this. And so a group of people met to see, how do we move forward? What do we even do? What does this look like? And many of us are on this call, but I want to make sure you know all these people because a lot of work has been done. This is Diane Waddell, Elizabeth Metter, Heidi Peterson, Scott Phillips, Mac Fetchling, Karen Wright, Sarah Dunn Pickrell, Rachel Danner, J. Craig Gibson, Brian, whose last name I have forgotten, and then
Brian Bond.
Brian Bond, thank you. And we've been meeting monthly, even with COVID and doing this on Zoom and learning all the things. This was an energizing task that we were working on. Mac Fetchling is a graphic design artist, and he is amazing. And he took all of our ideas and what we were talking about and made the logo, or lots of different versions of logos. The Heartland Presbytery logo kind of grew out of this visioning task force because we found the need to have that in place before we could decide on the visioning logo. Dee said in her one thing she was celebrating was that she was looking forward to this meeting. I was too, and That has been true for all of the visioning meetings, and that's not often true. Hey, I'm going to go get on a Zoom call is not something I generally get a whole lot of excitement about. But the meetings have been creative, and one of the great joys of this is that the people are there because they want to be there. And so when someone says, oh, what about this? I'll do that. And then somebody else will throw out an idea and someone else will say, oh, I'll work on that. So it's really a team trying to be creative and plan as we move forward. So that's how we've gotten here. It has not been a quick process, but it has been very prayerful, and you can feel the Spirit moving. So with that, I'm going to invite Elizabeth to do a brief description of the statement. You've all received it, so she won't read it for you, but Elizabeth, you want to describe things for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to share my screen just because I'm a visual learner and it helps me to be able to see it. So as Nikki said, this really came out of those conversations we were having in December and since then. And so I just wanted to describe to you what we mean by these different pieces. You'll notice in the logo, they overlap because they do all overlap with each other. One of the things that I most resonate with in this vision is that we want to be a presbytery that is creative and creating. We know that God is our creator and is always creating a new thing. And as the people of God, we get to do that as well. Our hope, our vision is that we will become a presbytery that thinks out of the box, that we will not just do things the way we've done them. Even if the way we've done them seems to be working, we're looking at not treading water, but on creating something new and exciting. We are hopeful that we would become an incubator for new worshiping communities and then just new ways of being church, even in our existing worshiping communities. And we want to be known for this. We want in the Presbyterian Church, when people start talking about what churches are being innovative, what churches are doing ministry that is relevant now, who's thinking outside of the box, we want Heartland Presbytery to be the ones that is on the forefront of everyone's mind. There's two pieces to this for us. It's both about survival. The church as we know it is just not going to exist in 20, 30, 40 years. The church has always been changing. And so we need to lean into that change so that there's still a Presbyterian church. And the other thing is it's a piece about faithfulness. We believe that we are reformed and always being reformed. And so part of being faithful to the God who creates and recreates and keeps creating, we're going to be creative as well. The other piece is that we want to be a presbytery that's always connecting. When I have to describe to non-Presbyterian, to mainline Christians who are not Presbyterians, what Presbyterians are like, the thing I love to say is we do everything in committee, and therefore we do everything by community. So that connection piece is a big part of our religious and denominational heritage. But we also need to be honest that in Heartland Presbytery, we have not always done a good job of connecting with each other. We've not always done a good job of supporting each other and seeing each other. And so our hope going forward is that we would be a presbytery that goes deeper with each other, that really trusts each other, relies on each other, that works together. And that's individually as presbyters, as churches, and of course our church's relationship with the larger presbytery. We want to be a body that is connected. The other thing is we want to be including. I look at your beautiful faces and they're wonderful. And I see no people of color. And I see maybe one person in their 20s, but probably not. We want to be a presbytery that is intentionally inclusive of all God's people, of God's vision for a diverse church. And the reality is we're not going to be able to create well or connect well unless everyone truly has a voice at the table. So we want to be even more intentional about creating a space that's inclusive. The other thing that's important is that we want to be a presbytery that leads. Not only do we want to lead things like creative ministry, but we want to train leaders, and that's some of the burden on that is on the presbytery. We want to provide more trainings, more experience, more opportunities to train leaders, to have people who say, I want to serve, but I don't know how, or people who say, I know how, but maybe could use some more education, that we equip people to do this work. And the presbytery wants to step up and do more of that, but we also, again, are going to expect more of our leaders. We're going to expect more creativity and connectivity and inclusion. So it's a relationship of providing that leadership training as well as expecting our leaders to step up. We want to be known for being a great place for new and innovative leadership. And then if you notice, if you look at our logo, it is encircled with hearts that symbolize both Heartland Presbytery and love, as well as celebrating. We are going to challenge things that are difficult, and we're going to be honest about those. We're not going to be a Pollyanna presbytery, but we are absolutely going to rejoice in the Lord always, as Scripture tells us to do. We are going to be a presbytery that doesn't focus on what went wrong, that doesn't focus on what we wish had gone better, but intentionally celebrates and lifts up the good things that God is doing among us. And so some of that, as you've noticed, we've already been in our presbytery meetings having 1-minute celebrations. We're going to encourage that to continue, as well as continue in meetings. We're going to encourage really opportunities for us to lift each other up, because my entire time in Heartland Presbytery, God has been doing great things. The question is what we focus on. And so we're going to focus on that, loving one another, celebrating one another, and doing these good things. And that's going to enable us to tackle the hard stuff better when it comes up. And so my question to you for large group discussion, we may actually have time for everybody to speak, but I would still encourage you to not write a dissertation, as Heidi said. I'm curious, what about this vision in its current form excites you? What energizes you? What makes your brain just kind of pop and think of new things? And then what also challenges you? What do you think is going to be hard? What do you think is going to take some work for us to do? What are you excited about, and what challenges you? And so I'd just like to open it up for a large discussion for a few minutes. You don't have to raise your hand. It's not school. You can just go.
So Elizabeth, some people have been in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just now looking at the chat.
Commenting on those questions as you've gone along. I'm kind of interested, Cynthia, in hearing more about your comment. You have a child you're dealing with.
No, I was changing location because I was sitting right next to my husband, who had other things to pay attention to. So far, what we've been dealing with on my committee is how to ensure that all the pastors do the training that's required every year, and then also, talking a little bit about how we would respond should we receive a complaint, where we are called upon to support both the person who's filing the complaint and the accused person. And I guess I associate being creative with maybe more lightheartedness and coming up with sort of more playful ways of dealing with things. And it's just hard to imagine how to be very playful in this particular realm. That's kind of what I was keying on. But we have, been doing some brainstorming and trying to come up with new ideas. So in that sense, that's a positive, that if that's what we're thinking of as creative.
I'm gonna jump in. Cynthia, I appreciate you naming that, because creative actually doesn't have to be playful or joyful, or it can be creative in areas specifically that are delegated to each of the committees that are serious. And it's creative ways of approaching it that may look different than what they've looked like in the past. So that would be an invitation I would offer of even how creative is perceived.
Yeah.
Inventive, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I noticed in the chat several people talking about how adaptive leadership is challenging and messy. I'm wondering if anyone wants to say more about that.
Well, I think adaptive leadership is one of those that anyone can lead anytime, anywhere. And so you can get a lot of leaders in a room, but it's also about breaking things apart and digging down to what is the root cause underneath all of this stuff, and how do we get to it? And then how do we come up with ideas for different ways? And one of the things with Kansas Leadership Center that I love in their language is they talk about renting ideas. And so when we come up with an idea, we may have a list of, here are 4 things that we would like to try to see if this helps correct a problem. We go with number 1. And if you rent an idea, you get to try it for as long a time period as you think is reasonable. And if it doesn't work, you can go, and that didn't work. The next idea was, let's try that. And so I think it's being willing as a presbytery that we're not going to solve racial tension in an hour. Like, none of the big issues of the day are going to be solved quickly. So how do we start looking at inclusivity and diversity? How do we look at and use some creative and adaptive leadership to kind of pull that apart? And what are ideas that we might try and might engage? Because it also is about, adaptive leadership is about engaging new voices. And so who are the voices in our presbytery who we're not hearing?
Another challenge, thank you, Karen. Another challenge is getting the problem statement correct. We at our age may have a different problem statement, or I just speak for myself. Based on my experience, I may have a different problem statement when I look at an issue than others around me. Adaptive leadership is asking if we're actually looking at the correct problem and going from there. And I have put a number of comments in about young leaders. When I talk with young folks, they look at things differently. And I think that's good. And yet, without necessarily a track record of experience or mentoring, somebody starts to speak up. That can get messy. Doesn't mean you should shut it down. It's just messy. And encouraging, and not to be defeated by the challenges that come with leadership, but to be built up through those challenges is another big challenge we face. Sorry, too many uses of the word challenge.
I guess I would also say I really appreciate so many aspects of this. We're talking a lot about adaptive leadership, and I think there's a sort of a baseline understanding of what that means on this call. But I think one of the important pieces of this going forward will be helping people understand what people who have not gone to a lot of church conferences and heard a lot of talks about adaptive leadership to just really, and even whether those words are used or not, but to talk about how we address change and how we connect our actions to our values. And I think that will be a really meaningful piece of how this plays out going forward. What I really wanted to say, though, is I really appreciate 2 elements of this especially. One is the commitment to intentional inclusion, and the way that is paired with conversation about needing to hear a range of voices, that it is about inclusion of people and their different characteristics, but it's also about inclusion of the range of voices and opinions and views and approaches to life. That, you know, a lot of the work I've done in my other hat on with the Covenant Network has been about having hard conversations, connecting with people that you think you are not the same as, or that you don't agree with. And that, I think, continues. You could have said that of our presbytery 20 years ago. That continues to be just as important today. I think the other piece that I'm really excited about in this is the way that you are casting a vision that crosses lines across all of our different committees and programs and sectors. You're not making a distinction between this is our mission and this is our ecclesiastical stuff. You know, COM is over here with what they do, and then mission is over here with what they do. You're talking about everything we do is mission, and everything we do is church identity. And I appreciate that this approach is designed to it's sort of like the conversation with Cindy about safe boundaries. Everything we do is wrapped up in this, and I really appreciate this work. So thank you.
Well, with Brian's great segue, what we're going to do is to break into small group discussion. Dee is going to randomly put us in chat groups because she's clever about that, things like that. And there are a couple of questions to talk about with whomever you are with. The goal of this is, you know, we all are going to be responsible for selling this vision to other people, to the people who are on our commissions, on our committees. And so the purpose of this time is for your use to brainstorm with a couple of other folks about your current work and about the work that your particular area may do in the future. So, you know, how is it that your committee or commission is already living into this vision, and how can you continue to work with your commission or your committee to further live into or to further realize this vision? We're not going to have a report back after this little breakout. This is just for your use to get your ideas going in terms of, so it's purely for your use to think about your area and what the vision means for your area, how you might impart that vision to other people that you work with. So Dee?
And as self-appointed timekeeper, we are ahead of our docket, which is always a blessing. So we will have these discussions and then reconvene for next steps at 2:55. Your normal docket should say 3:05, but we're about 10 minutes ahead.
So you still want the groups to go for 15 minutes, is that correct?
Yep. And
Okay.
I just in the chat put in our new time boundaries based on where we are right now.
Okay.
'Cause if I can get us out early, we're going to get out early.
Okay, here we go. I think it's us. Greg? I wonder if it's videotaping while we're in groups, and if it's videotaping me. All of a sudden it's occurred to me. So if you're watching this, just fast forward through this part because it's very boring. It's going to be another 4 minutes before they come back. Okay, hang in there. Maybe I can try my video editing and edit out this part. And the question is, what did you do for the last 15 minutes? One more minute left.
Dee, are we all back?
No, here comes Heidi and We're missing a couple.
Greg isn't he? Oh, there's Greg.
Brian and Karen.
Here we go.
Gimby. There we are. We're all back now.
Awesome. Thanks.
Everybody's intact. Nobody lost their molecules on the way.
We were just talking too much and having a good time. So.
That's a great thing. So like Heidi said, we're not going to share out from that discussion, but I do hope that it got your thoughts going as to how are you already doing this and what will it look like as we move forward. Because that's the big part of this now is this vision is only as good as we make it. It is not something that is set in stone and here we go and now we all gather around and ooh and ah over this thing. It's only as good as when we live into it and it changes and grows with us. There are things to celebrate and there's room for growth. So this is the ask as we come to it. If we were to use stewardship terms, there are a few things that we would like for you all to do as leaders of your committees and commissions. And they're not ginormous things, but we've got to start somewhere. And really, you are the keys to this because we need the energy coming from the task force and then coming from you as leaders to, like water, roll into all the different cracks and crevices around the presbytery. So 4 things that you can do starting right now to help move the presbytery forward. The first one is to introduce this to your committee or your commission. Generate a conversation around the logo, the language of the wording behind it, about who we are and who we're becoming. And some of the questions that we asked today are really great at just getting people thinking about how are we already living into this? Okay, so that's number 1 is have a conversation. Even, for example, Cynthia, you have a very specific task and it might feel forced. It is our hope that even a very task-oriented group like that can grow into this vision. The second thing is that every meeting you begin, after you pray, read the vision statement. It is 1 sentence and is a great way to just keep that in the forefront of your mind and the minds of the people in whatever meeting you happen to be in. So introduce the conversation around this. Begin every meeting by reading the 1-sentence vision statement that takes us to where we're hoping to be. And then to take time either at the beginning or at the end of every meeting to celebrate. Celebrate the work that you did that day. Celebrate the things you're excited about coming up. Take a moment and hear each person's personal celebrations. We are the presbytery, and so we don't need to put qualifiers on what we're celebrating, but take the time at the beginning or the end, or both, to celebrate. If that's what's holding us around the center, which is God, let's lean into that. And then the 4th thing is, where appropriate, in your reports to presbytery, that Brian reminds us regularly to send those in, highlight aspects of your work that reflect the vision. You can say, we are being intentionally inclusive by, and tell us, the whole presbytery, something you're doing that leads you into that vision statement. You can do that verbally. You can do that in your written reports. You can do that in both. Those are the 4 things. That's all we're asking right now. 4 steps. Introduce that conversation. Read the vision statement. celebrate together. And then in your reports out to the presbytery, written and verbal, tell how you're living into this. Those are your next steps. And I know that I, for one, am going to do that with our CPM meetings, and I invite you all to do that with all of the meetings that you have. And Elizabeth,
And
there you
so
go.
in that spirit, as we start to wrap up this meeting we're having, I would like to open it up for more celebration. When we began our meeting, we were sharing individual celebrations, anything that came to mind. And this time, I'd like you to very specifically share with us what you're celebrating about your committee or commission's work right now. What is worth celebrating in your piece of the presbytery that makes you excited? And so we'll go by calling on each other. And so I'll go first as moderator of the presbytery. I am excited that this presbytery is still really active in the midst of a pandemic. A lot of my moderator friends have found that their presbyteries have just sort of shut down until further notice. And we are still doing good work. We're still having meetings. Thanks be to God for people like Brian who knew how to Zoom before this all started. We're still an active presbytery that is moving and active and letting the Spirit guide us. And I think that's really exciting and we're celebrating. And I would call on Karen to go next.
I would celebrate as part of council and as a member of the personnel committee, our presbytery staff. Presbytery staff has been amazing throughout a pandemic and also some major upheaval in staff. With the death of Sally Hinchman and then Brian leaving and now Sherry leaving, like, staff has been there. Michelle, I see you nodding your head over there. I see you. And Dee. And so we're grateful for the staff that are here and that are continuing to serve and to work, and Brian that has stepped in as the stated clerk. So those are still going, and the personnel committee has also has written job descriptions so that we can begin the search for the next it's the presbyter for resourcing or for leadership and vision. I have to remember what the titles are, but we have a lot of stuff. You know, personnel's been hard at work, but I give it up for our staff. They've been amazing. I'm gonna call on Lonnie.
Yes, I think that I'm here as part of this group because of my role as the moderator of COM last year. I'm no longer part of COM this year, and I can celebrate the fact that I have no idea of what they're doing. So, but beyond that celebration, I see some interesting parallels with the pastoral care team that I am part of this year. And that is a new and creative ministry of the presbytery that seeks to surround members of the presbytery with God's love and God's centering, and to provide support and help in a way that the presbytery has not done before. So I see this vision statement as is something that will be very helpful to the pastoral care team as we figure out what we're supposed to do and move forward with that new ministry of presbytery. Oh, Alex?
Okay. Let's see. Stewardship has been involved in doing the combined presbyteries stewardship event. I think we've done 3 now that are available on Zoom meetings and have been well attended. We're very pleased that way, considering we had to end our actual in-place meeting. And as far as the committee goes, we've kind of gotten a jump start on the leadership thing because we've been making calls to local churches. We started out at a request to make calls on those churches who didn't pay their per capita. And we felt oh, great, now we're the Dunning Committee. And then we decided we'd maybe change that. And so we started just calling and asking how churches were doing during the pandemic. And we've only gotten to about 30 churches, but we have had really incredible responses. Some saying, we've never been called by Presbytery ever before unless there was something wrong. This is weird. So it's been a really positive thing. I think the committee, which has gotten smaller and smaller, has really was kind of terrified of making the calls to begin with. But we've gotten to the point now, I think, where we've kind of enjoyed talking to these people and making contact with all sorts of members of Presbytery. Let's see. Sarah?
Thanks, Alex. I shared a little bit what I'm celebrating, but there's much to celebrate, so I can come up with something else. Besides the obvious of just, I've been so amazed at the way people are able to continue to dream during a pandemic and are willing to risk starting something new, and are willing to try on this presbytery in the process. I think has been amazing. I'm also celebrating that that I get to be a part of a commission that's willing to sit in the tension as we work to develop like anti-racist policies, procedures, like ways of doing things, not only in the diversity of the people that sit on the commission, but also in the minutia of how we want to run a meeting, how whiteness shows up in harmful ways in all of these places. And it's not always easy. It's not always consensus with everybody, but we're willing to, I think, sit with that increasingly so. And that makes for a really good, rich team, I think, who will model something different and hopefully feel like home to a lot of people who have been excluded from the church in a variety of ways. So very excited about that. And I'll pass it over to Paul so he can talk more on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sarah said a lot. There's a lot to be thankful for and to celebrate with the new worshiping communities. We started the year with 5, and it looks like we might end the year with 10 new worshiping communities. And the leadership is diverse, and it's all the stuff that we all have been wanting to see in our denomination for so many years: more diversity, more young leadership, more creative ministry. And so that's all fantastic. I also am on the personnel committee, and thankful for the cohesive, I mean, when we wrote those job descriptions, it just came together. I just really feel like the spirit's at work. Looking at this logo, I was sharing with our breakout group. When I first came here, people told me, "Oh, we're not Heartland Presbytery, we're Heartless Presbytery," because we like to argue and we're very divided. And now to see us surrounded by hearts, I just feel like the spirit's at work, and we've hit a tipping point. And COVID has kicked us even further into the future, and we're like, all right, let's do this thing. Let's be positive. Let's celebrate. And Dee, I have to really take my hat off to you and the way that you have paved to allow that to happen, to encourage that to happen, to break down walls, and to allow for healthy dialogue and conflict to take place. So thank you.
Oh, who would you like to call on next?
I will call on James Scott.
Yeah, I got to echo the commitment to premising a future on a vision that is part of this discussion and concurrent with Dee's nature, as well as a part of her commitment here. I'd also say that one of the things that's just about to happen is the Presbytery has been the sponsor of a 32-unit affordable housing project devoted to domestic violence survivors that's about to be completed on the LAMP campus in about 3 months. It'll be open December 1st. And we just secured 15 years worth of grant funding to provide the social services for that. And that's an invisible part of the mission for the Presbytery, but I suspect it's one of the few in the country that's doing that level of direct involvement. And same thing for the kitchen. We're just about to start a community kitchen that will be a shared use kitchen that will continue the healthy food program. So there's a lot of silent participation by the Presbyterians in some of that, but not so much tomorrow, Dee. There'll be a LAMP board meeting, and we'll talk about all those things. But it's the Presbytery that did that. The LAMP as an agent of the Presbytery, but the Presbytery authorized and committed to that, and patiently worked through, including a dilemma with the tenancy of the Presbytery at the campus. But all that said, I think I think Paul's right in that there's a remarkable trend line when we step back and see it. And it's possible we don't get to see it very often. I like Greg. I'll call on Greg. Are you out there?
Yes. So Pullman, our great celebration is this Friday, commemorating the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington, which is actually last Friday. But because we could not get parade permits, it is this Friday. It is the March on Kansas City for Justice and Peace. It is from 3 to 5 o'clock, starting at 12th and Locust and ending up at the World War I Memorial. Now, we're just a part sponsor, but absolutely integral to the message and the action being taken on Friday. So Pullman has co-sponsored it financially. In our last meeting, which was last week, we challenged our churches to bring groups of folks to participate. And so that's what we are celebrating right now is March on Friday. And let me see here. Rachel, I call on you.
Well, I'm also on the personnel committee, and I echo a lot of the sentiment that has been already shared with how we've envisioned going forward and how we have continued to evolve with the guidance from this initial committee moving forward as a presbytery, listening to the voices that shared early on and really thinking more creatively and with God's inspiration about what kind of leadership and vision do we want for our future, and trying to be as forward thinking as possible, to get out of the box, to get out of the norm, to let go of the need for power and to be right, and to find ways to celebrate and be inclusive, and to open the door to something more. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited about with personnel, especially going forward, with all the ways that we've been able to adapt so far and looking at all the ways that we can continue that. Cynthia, have you gone?
No.
Susie?
I would celebrate the fact that I just found out that the nominating committee had spoke with the 3 members of my panel who would have rotated off this year, and they all agreed to stay on. And the 2 meetings we've had so far, we've had very spirited discussions with the people who were able to attend. So I feel very grateful for that, as it seems that people just are not lined up to be on the Safe Boundaries Response panel. So I'm very happy for the members that we have, and those that are willing to stay on and do this important work. Oh, Heidi.
So this is the visioning team thing is the one main presbytery commitment I have right now in terms of in the structural sense, and it's been very exciting, kind of fun, but during the last 5 months, the thing I've appreciated most, I think, goes to the connecting piece of the vision, totally outside of the of structural things in the presbytery. I mean, I've needed a lot of help figuring how to do stuff. I mean, tech stuff, and just mission things that all have to be retooled for COVID. And I have had a lot of help from ministry colleagues and from elders I know and other churches who have certain expertise. And I just really celebrate the connections that we have with one another as members of Heartland Presbytery, and the ways in which outside of a system, those things are available, that we're available to one another to to help and support one another in those less formal ways. And Walt.
Yes, thank you. I had a very fortunate experience this past Saturday. I was part of the group that gave out 300 bags of food and to passing by motorists on Swope Avenue at front of Covenant Church.
Nice.
Which was the culmination of 2 weeks of various volunteers coming to the church, packing these bags of produce and everything else. And I think as we look at our logo and our mission, we can't lose sight of the folks that are really doing the groundwork of what's happening and making sure that we take advantage of their enthusiasm and commitment to Christ's work and put it into action. So it's great for us to talk about the super logo and the overview, but let's not forget about the folks that are on the front line, so to speak, doing the work that we really want to coordinate. Michelle, can you talk to us too?
Well, I sit here and I look at all of your faces and I celebrate all of you. From a staff point of view, the perspective is different. And I'm thankful for all of you pleasant folks that I work with individually, but to see you guys all coming together and working together is definitely something to celebrate. Not any one of us, just the staff on our own, or any one of us can accomplish the work in the ministry that you guys do together. So I just say thank you and I celebrate you. I call him Brian.
Thank you. So, I get the chance to work with a lot of your groups as an observer and resource. I'm gonna choose two groups that I think I would celebrate. One is the staff, and to echo some of what others have said, I was on the staff for a year in 2004 and 2005, in another break between stated clerks, and it's very difficult to describe how different the spirit of what it means to be the presbytery, what it means to be part of the staff is right now, but it is different, and it is different in a very good way. It feels like we're at a point of new beginning. I think Dee deserves a lot of the credit for that in her leadership and her approach to the work. But I think you also all deserve a lot of credit for that, because it has represented effort and hard work and changing for a lot of people. And we might even give God some of the credit for that. The other group, though, and this is a strange one for me to pick, you'll probably chuckle, but it's the Administrative Commission for Maxwell Heights Presbyterian Church, which you probably weren't thinking about before I said it. There's 3 people on it. We got a letter from the church at the beginning of the year that said they wanted to leave the PCUSA. We sent 3 people. They've been delayed by COVID and all of that. But I am so heartened when I watch 3 people who love the church wrestle with how they can take a situation that has all this conflict and figure out how to make it about reconciliation. I am not certain they're going to bring about a full and total reconciliation with this church by any means, but I have watched them listen and care and speak words of repentance where they need to, and honesty and firmness where they need to, and to move toward this place of clarity and eventual resolution, that they still express hope of reconciliation, and if not that, then how do we move forward peaceably together? And it is the model of what we as a covenant community, that is what a presbytery is, are about, and it has been really something to celebrate. And I think that's very much in the spirit of what the vision Visioning Task Force has named for us today. So I will celebrate that. Who has not yet spoken?
Kimby, I think.
Oh, Kimby, and then Nikki too, I guess. But is Kimby still here?
I think
She's not on my
Kimby is
screen.
not on our meeting anymore.
So Nikki.
So as I did in my small group, I'm switching hats and going to talk about the Commission on Preparation for Ministry, which feels like a really easy one to find things to celebrate. And I apologize to my small group. I misspoke when I said that there were no Black, Indigenous people of color in my 6 years. There are a few, as I've been thinking that through. But I'm celebrating currently that in September, we have several that are taking ordination exams, senior ordination exams, which is exciting because it means they're getting much farther along in their process. And Rachel, I don't think we heard from you yet, did we? Oh, we did. Okay. Anybody else?
D.
D. How about you, D?
Well, I've been listening to y'all, and I would say kind of taking a step back and thinking of the first 3 Presbytery meetings I was a part of here. I had heard the rumor that went around about Heartland Presbytery. I also got strong-armed by some of our more traditional folks that I needed to come in and set the vision for the Presbytery and have you abide by that, because that's a very traditional model of a CEO. And I celebrate that I knew better than to ever do that, because there is no way I could have created anything of what we have before us. And I believe that's God's grace. I also believe that is an amazing presbytery, and I would say of leadership and of staff that have listened to God, that have stepped into these, and I'm not going to call them problems. They really are invitations and opportunities for growth. And to spend a year saying, how do we reconnect? How do we become the ways in who we are and how we communicate with each other? And, you know, to hear Denise Anderson last February say from the Presbytery floor, who are you? You know, that was such a celebration of your leadership and of the many ways people have been willing to get messy, but to also get clear and to also make a commitment. I believe the parallel play that has happened with the Vision Task Force, but also the Committee Task Force, the 3-year initiative, the many different ways that this is played out, the Personnel Committee, and it's been parallel play. So it's been synchronicity in so many ways of interactivity between all of these and how they are interwoven. And to me, that is all about God and God's Spirit and y'all's leadership, your creativity. So I just celebrate right and left that what is before us and you as Heartland Presbytery is not, it's not traditional. It's not typical. It's challenging, and it's also filled with potential and hope of becoming all that God has in store for you. And for that, I celebrate that, because I think it's very, very exciting.
Really appreciate everybody taking time. We actually went back on time for docket because we were having so much fun celebrating our committees and commissions and presbytery that I just let it go. But y'all are doing good work, and we hope that this orientation hour and a half helps you continue that good work. And so I would invite Dee to close us in prayer, and then we will go about our day.
Friends, let's pray. Amazing God, Mother and Father of us all, we celebrate that today, in sharing of these ideas, God, of the many ways this presbytery has stepped into the messiness, has opened the doors to possibility, has engaged one another in listening attentively, of listening to you deeply, and of listening to those inner calls and whispers of who they potentially can be. And God, not only did they listen deeply, but they started letting their imaginations and their creativity create in so many ways all of these big dreams. So God, we take these big dreams, this vision, this mission that really invites the presbytery into the next several generations. And we celebrate for the ways that they will stretch us, but also the ways that they will affirm and identify who you have called Heartland Presbytery to be. With thanksgiving for all the leadership that's represented here and those who are unable to join us, we give thanks and praise. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Have a good rest of your day, everybody.